So the things that the Foreign Minister of Spain has said and things that I have said are perfectly reconcilable. I mean, the Foreign Minister of Spain is talking about access to the Schengen area, and I'm talking about access to Gibraltar. Remember that
But people think the Schengen area is Gibraltar now.
Remember that we've explained that there will be two controls, and the primary control will be Gibraltar. The first access point to Gibraltar at the port and airport will be the Gibraltar access point. That is abundantly clear, and so nobody will enter Gibraltar without Gibraltar's consent. People who are then permitted to enter will have the opportunity of also going to the Schengen control, and there is where Frontex, on behalf of Spain and the other members of Schengen, because remember that Spain there is acting as a member of Schengen, not for itself, but for the whole of Schengen, they will then control who is able to access the Schengen area. And in the air terminal and at the port, there will only be Frontex agents, not any Spanish law enforcement.
When we talk about the port and the airport, I know that at one stage technological solutions were being looked at. Is this something that is still being looked at?
Well, I think that let's just be clear, because I think we've said the port in shorthand. It's the port and marinas, because we also have people accessing the marinas. We're looking at a combination of factors here. Gibraltar is already doing incredible work when it comes to arrivals at the port with a single window interface that we set up some time ago, where people give us advance notice of arrivals if they're coming on a super yacht or they're coming on a merchant ship. We have that information uploaded early. It's the equivalent of being told the advanced passenger names on an aircraft which is arriving in Gibraltar. We have that information ahead of time. So I think what you're going to see, not just in Gibraltar, not just in the context of this deal, but in particular in Gibraltar and in the context of this deal, is the evolution of technology, meaning that less and less interaction between a traveller and an agent is required. The agent will simply be checking that what we have been told electronically is actually what is happening de facto on the ground. Remember, we're talking about creating an integrated area of movement which starts at Europa Point and ends in Norway somewhere. So we've got to understand that these are two joint areas of arrival, of access, but there will be a separate key to enter Gibraltar, which we will retain as our freestanding immigration key, which will be managed by the Gibraltar Borders and Coast Guard agents. And as I've said before, and I've said outside of Gibraltar as well, I hope that in the initial period, Gibraltar Borders and Coast Guard agents will demonstrate to the Schengen authorities through their professionalism, which I have argued repeatedly people should not underestimate internationally, that they should be the ones to take over, once the initial period is over, the control of all access into Gibraltar and Schengen.
So having said that, in 4 years' time, when the issue of Frontex is revisited, do you have any guarantee on, I mean, Spain could tell you in 4 years' time, no, Borders and Coast Guard not good enough. Do you have any guarantee that your red lines will be respected?
The red lines of Gibraltar and the red lines of the Gibraltarians will always be respected, at least whilst I am Chief Minister, and I have no doubt that if anybody else were to become Chief Minister elected by the people of Gibraltar, they would be elected also to ensure respect for those red lines. That's why we've been very clear that there'll be a period of consultation leading up to the end of that 4-year period. And by the end of that period, if there are not arrangements which are satisfactory to the people of Gibraltar, that is to say that there will not be Spanish agents in Gibraltar's air terminal or port to carry out the checks into Gibraltar, then we will simply have the right to veto that by terminating the agreement.
Well, Chief Minister, I know that you said that it'll be for a few days, maybe a few weeks. I think you told Radio Gibraltar. What we've seen at the frontier, this could have been what we could have expected on day one of a hard Brexit.
Well, no, I think it would have been a lot worse, Christine. I think it would have had big issues with wet stamping of passports, even though we have restrictions on movement in Gibraltar and restrictions on people who can come into Gibraltar because of the movement in Gibraltar. We would have seen wet stamping of passports for residents. We would have seen big problems with the movement of produce, even with our contingency measures working and in place. But it would have, as we always said, not have been enough to deliver anywhere near normality. And this in-principle agreement, when you look beyond the detail and you look at the big picture and the socio-economic, geographic reality that we're leading with here, and what we need to ensure we make permanent for the future, I think just having reached this stage is an absolutely fantastic step forward for our community, leading, I hope, from a New Year's Eve agreement to a treaty on mobility and prosperity which will endure and which will be the source of easier mobility for us and secured prosperity going forward, with sovereignty guaranteed, jurisdiction protected, and control entirely in our hands as it should be.